L'Emilia-Romagna è una terra di piaceri proibiti. Dici che vieni qua perché si mangia bene, poi di nascosto vai a gustarti le città d'arte. Con la scusa delle notti folli ti godi i 202 teatri, i 530 musei, oltre 100 chilometri di portici, migliaia di spettacoli nelle sere d'estate. Ma abbiamo una reputazione da difendere. Quindi, per favore, non dire che vieni qua per l'arte e la cultura. I veri piaceri sono segreti. Emilia-Romagna, Italia.
Noi di Conad siamo vicino a Claudia, che cerca convenienza in ogni suo acquisto, dagli alimenti più freschi ai prodotti per la casa, per la salute e per il benessere. Abbiamo tanti Conad, tutti diversi, per essere vicino alle vostre esigenze.
Sapete chi è che ci dice se una forma di formaggio può diventare grana padano? La forma stessa. Se ci racconta di godersi la vita, di un sapore delicato e fragrante, allora sì, è grana padano. E se poi attendiamo mesi e mesi, avremo qualcosa di ancora più ricco e ricercato. Grana padano riserva. Grana padano, la vita ha un sapore meraviglioso.
L'Emilia-Romagna è una terra di piaceri proibiti. Dici che vieni qua perché si mangia bene, poi di nascosto vai a gustarti le città d'arte. Con la scusa delle notti folli ti godi i 202 teatri, i 530 musei, oltre 100 chilometri di portici, migliaia di spettacoli nelle sere d'estate. Ma abbiamo una reputazione da difendere. Quindi, per favore, non dire che vieni qua per l'arte e la cultura. I veri piaceri sono segreti. Emilia-Romagna, Italia.
Noi di Conad siamo vicino a Claudia, che cerca convenienza in ogni suo acquisto, dagli alimenti più freschi ai prodotti per la casa, per la salute e per il benessere. Abbiamo tanti Conad, tutti diversi, per essere vicino alle vostre esigenze.
Sapete chi è che ci dice se una forma di formaggio può diventare grana padano? La forma stessa. Se ci racconta di godersi la vita, di un sapore delicato e fragrante, allora sì, è grana padano. E se poi attendiamo mesi e mesi, avremo qualcosa di ancora più ricco e ricercato. Grana padano riserva. Grana padano, la vita ha un sapore meraviglioso.
Benvenuti a tutti.
Welcome everyone to this session that is entitled The Ecological Transition in the Agri-Food Sector. The whole of the agri-food sector is involved in the struggle against climate change with the chlorophyll photosynthesis. Agriculture produces carbon dioxide. The target is to reach carbon neutrality, but our sector is the victim of the damages caused by climate changes. And, well, our sector needs to produce food enough to feed the world and to meet the needs of consumers. The direction given by consumers to our policies is summarized in the Farm to Fork strategy issued in March 2020. People are more and more attentive to the ethical, environmental aspects of food. The future of economy, including that of agriculture, will be marked by the green transition. We will all be involved in this great process. So CDO Agri-Food, that organized this session together with the meeting, is involved directly in this transformation. So this objective can be used by being proactive. We cannot go back to the agriculture of the past. We are called upon to carry out a great transformation. We need to be proactive and not passive. So this meeting devoted to the courage to say "I," we wanted to stress the importance of the behavior of individuals in respecting our planet. The experiences we are going to share today are concrete examples of changes in productive models and of how the involvement of institutions, enterprises, and organizations can make it possible to produce food while respecting the environment. So this is the background for our session today. We have a very rich program, so let's start straight away with Matteo Fiocco, who is an entrepreneur as well as the founder of the social channels called Matt the Farmer. He has a huge audience, and we actually envy him somehow because he's really done a very good job. So we would like to know, who are you? How was Matt the Farmer created? What are the reasons for your success, and what are your expectations? You have the floor. Thank you. Well, yes, I'm Matteo, and I am a digital farmer. And every time I have to explain what that means, actually. Well, it's quite easy. I simply talk about my work as a farmer on social networks. In 2015, I became a father, and well, just like any other father, I started to think about the future of my daughter. And well, my situation at the time, well, you can see what I started from in 2015. It was a big investment. I did not own my house. And all the money we had when my daughter was 3 or 4 months old, we invested in the Franciacorta region, buying this land. And many said I was crazy, and maybe they were even right. But I wanted to create my own small farm with animals, with a vegetable garden, with a vineyard, and a place where we could meet our friends, a place where I could see my daughter and now my son grow up. Years went by, and I really needed to gather information and to also communicate what I was doing. We had a lot of, well, difficulties. So I really needed to talk about what I was doing. So a community emerged around my work, a group of people, and now we are, well, quite numerous on the different social networks. And you can see different videos now. I post one video every day, so we have about 660 videos that tell our story from the very first day. And you can find them on different platforms, social networks. So I started to work on this land, so that's 2017, my first experiments, my first vegetable garden, and I just wanted to explain what I was doing, and I wanted to talk about the mistakes I made. On the web, everyone seems to know what to do. I didn't know what to do at the time, so I really wanted to admit my mistakes and to tell people, don't do this because it's a mistake. I did it myself and it didn't work, so don't do it. And in 2019, 2020, we started to manage a vineyard and an olive orchard, and I was really loving what I was doing, and I knew I was going in the right direction. And in the end, I did create some kind of model, because our society is highly specialized, but sometimes it loses the general overview. I had a professor who said that the sum of different elements does not equal the whole, because well, that's what I wanted. I wanted to create a model that could be used by others. By watching my videos, anyone could understand how to create their own farms. Then this year, 2021, we decided to do something more, to do something that was not just for my family. And so I bought another piece of land. It has to be obviously cleaned up, and everything needs to be well, worked at. My wife always tells me, you like to work. So what I want to do is to create an agricultural model, a farm with an open budget, an open balance, where everyone can see the expenditures and the assets of the farm. Everyone can see how I can ask for funds, what kind of seeds I choose, the kind of business model I adopt. So the problem of agriculture is that we're often victims of parochialism, and when one wants to start a new farm, well, one has to really face a lot of problems, because there are so many difficult situations from the administrative point of view, first of all, because you do not know exactly what you have to ask for. And even if you do know what you ask for, you have to really do a series of steps in order to find it. Lately, I met a few professionals in the field of agriculture, different styles of innovative agricultural practice, and many farms that really have a vision for the future, so they can really see the world in 5, 10, 15 years. And so the challenge is for it to become a place, but just something that will turn the farm into something that can be of inspiration for everyone who is interested in walking along the same path. Life was easier a few centuries ago, because you didn't have to take all the decisions we have to take today. That's really exhausting. Matteo, I just have a question. My daughter, Cecilia, she's 30 and she's a nurse. And she didn't know I knew, and she asked me, have you ever watched the videos by Matt the farmer? And well, I found out that she and her husband, who was a lawyer, just to relax in the evening, they watch the Matt the Farmer videos. So that's nothing to do with what they do professionally. So how can you actually attract the interest of an audience like this? And then the idea of the monastery. Well, I really do not think about this. I mean, I do not think about the audience don't have a business project, a branding project. I don't want to talk about a specific territory or a specific product. What I want to talk about is my human experience. I wanted to meet people, and we should not. I mean, it's not upon us to save the world. Even if nuclear bombs should go off in the world, in 5,000 years, the planet will be starting again. So the COVID showed us that, for instance, when we were locked in our homes, nature exploded as it had never done before. And so what I'm really interested in is sharing my experience with all my weaknesses and all the problems I have encountered. And maybe this, I think, is what is most interesting. So it is, so to speak, something that is interesting at a horizontal level. And what can you tell us about the monastery? Well, there is just one agricultural model that continued to exist also without men. That is the agricultural model of the Benedictine Abbeys. So, for instance, that's quite clear in France. There are places where there used to be monasteries that are still very rich in biodiversity, because it was a model, an agricultural system that it was not aggressive towards nature. It was more a guardian of nature. So I must say that I really love this kind of agricultural model, because it leaves room to nature, to imagination, and it respects also what men can do. Thank you, thank you, Matteo. And I think this was really the right opening of our session this morning. Now we have a guest who is, well, also extremely interesting for us, because he will be talking about consumers. Luca Panzavolta, who is the managing director of CIA Conad, a cooperative of the Conad Consortium. He's, well, CIA Conad covers a big area. And so the questions I have for him are, or actually, do consumers influence green transition? Are consumers ready to pay more in order to have this transition? And does Conad believe in this? And what is Conad doing to contribute to the green transition? Luca, you have the floor. Well, environmental sustainability is something that has been attracting more and more interest over the past years. People are more interested in the environment. They do care about the environment. We have carried out a survey that actually confirmed what we already knew in a way from the purchasing behavior of our customers. Over 50% of people are really interested in the environment, so waste disposal, climate change. That's something that's no longer just a fashionable trend. It is something that is become really a behavioral pattern, especially among the young people. So apart from a commercial point of view, we really need to take into account this new environmental awareness that, but fortunately, is spreading very quickly. There are two aspects that need to be taken into account when we talk about consumers' behavior. This interest is different according to sectors. So there is not some kind of homogeneous interest, and I would like to explain better. If we talk about food products, this interest is higher. For non-food products, well, there is not the same interest for the environment. I talk about, for instance, vegetables and fruit, but also products like wine, where here consumers are really attentive. They really wanted to see whether the producers were using environmental friendly production systems. But there are also other products for which this interest is not just as strong. Well, obviously, this is a trend that is ongoing. So, well, in the future, we will have the same interest also for other sectors. But anyway, there are farms, there are enterprises that are actually running after this kind of interest. The pandemic actually highlighted and stressed this kind of attention towards the environment and towards sustainability. And there are also enterprises who should be pioneers in this field because maybe their sector is not really hit by this kind of interest, but it will certainly be in the future. So, well, from this point of view, we need to know that this environmental interest is going to be more and more important. And then there is another aspect. You asked whether consumers are ready to pay more to have more sustainability. Well, this is a difficult aspect because according to the studies, the surveys that we had, and the behavior we see in our consumers, there is just a minority of consumers who really are ready to pay more for products that are produced in a sustainable way. Anyway, even when they are ready to pay more, they are not ready to pay much more. We cannot have prices that are much higher for these products. And the majority of people also, well, expect the prices of environmentally friendly products is exactly the same as those products that are not produced in an environmental friendly way. So it should be the enterprises who actually pay for this. This is, in a way, an issue because the green transition and sustainability is a problem that has to be part of our costs as enterprises, because this is something that will be seen as a prerequisite by consumers. So the problems that actually the enterprises that have sustainable production cycles is chosen by consumers, so it is more competitive, also in terms of quality, services, and prices. But if these characteristics are not acknowledged by the consumer will choose otherwise. So this is going to be an extremely important element in terms of competitiveness. Obviously, we should need also to be supported from the point of view of the regulations, because somehow we do not have any difference in the way enterprises are treated, whether they are environmental friendly or not. So, this is, in a way, the framework when we talk about consumers and their interests for sustainability and environment, a growing interest, but as well as an interest in a price that doesn't have to be too high. Conad has developed many different activities in areas linked with sustainability. We have now launched a campaign called Let's Support the Future, and we believe that enterprises too often do not report what they are doing, but they, or rather, they do that too late. So we have three main areas. So that of logistics, because that's what we do, actually. We bring products from the production to the consumers. So we made very dramatic choices here. We reduced the number of national hubs so that we can have shorter routes for our distribution of products. We developed agreement with our suppliers so that we can choose environmental friendly means of distribution. We developed, together with other enterprises of the same sector, the co-use of pallets and other systems that, for instance, we use recyclable, reusable pallets. So these means that we can reduce environmental costs in terms of pollution and of waste disposal. We have focus our attention on our stores and our supermarkets, and this is obviously something linked with the consumption of energy, and a great attention has been given to packaging because they have to be reusable, and most of our packaging material is now reusable, and they are made of reusable plastic. And then the advertising brochures, for instance, and or leaflets, we use recycling paper, and we prefer to use also other advertising channels, for instance, the web, and also through the distribution of advertising material in our markets. And then we're working on packaging. We would like to have 70% of our products with recyclable packaging. So, well, here we can count on the fact that 95% of our products with the Conad brand come from small and pickle enterprises. We have supplying contracts with them. We have direct supply chain relationships with them. And we also work with local producers. So we have a series of activities that take into account environmental sustainability as well as social sustainability. So, well, Italian products, local products. And when we acquired the Ocean stores, the number of Italian products in those markets was quite lower in comparison to what we have today. So I would like for you to have a round of applause for this. And even though we do believe this is important for us, well, this also helped us in terms of sales. So we met the expectations of consumers.
I have a question to you, Luca. You have contacts and you have signed contracts, and through all of this, what you do is to promote ecological transition. How do companies react to these activities? How do you see the businesses that supply goods to you? Well, actually, these businesses are manifold and varied. All the companies actually trust what we do together, and so they are following us. Their level of awareness is very high in this respect. So for us, this is fundamental, not only to kind of intercept the request of our consumers, but also because actually we have partners who are resellers. They're very much connected to their communities of origin, and they are grouped in cooperatives, and by default, cooperatives are very much connected to their territories. On the occasion of our last meeting last July, Mr. Smerilli participated, and he said that it will be the poor who will bear the costs of missed sustainability. I believe that this this statement is particularly serious. It should be seriously taken into account, and therefore Conad pays great attention to sustainability. Thank you very much, and thanks to Conad, who is a leader of the Italian distribution system, and as such, it has a very important task. It has got the responsibility of serving as the kind of leader for the whole sector. Now, there are two big companies of world food production. Let's start with Davide Franzetti, sales manager of Coca-Cola Italy. The question to Davide is the following. What do you say to a consumer who is skeptical when it comes to your intention actually to carry out tangible actions for ecological transition? What do you tell them to kind of document your activities, and what are you actually doing to implement this ecological transition? First of all, good morning everyone, and thanks for the opportunity that you've given me to address such an important forum and to talk about the topic of sustainability, which has become irrenounceable for us. We intend sustainability in the broadest sense of the term. We intend it as social, economic, as well as environmental sustainability. Today, more than ever, sustainability has become a fundamental strategic asset to transform businesses. We believe there is no other alternative other than becoming sustainable. Coca-Cola HBC Italy has started this transition for some time. In 2004, we issued our first sustainability report, so this was basically 17 years ago. To answer your question, to answer your desire to know how we can convince skeptical consumers, actually, I have to say that we have a very pragmatic stance. We like to do it by showing very tangible figures and not programs. That is why we have an agenda for 2025, which is very challenging. So the commitments are really very tight. And over the last 10 years, we have invested over 100 million euros in initiatives that have a direct impact on sustainability. These initiatives concern the whole supply chain, starting from production up until the final consumer. So from the production to the final store, so to say, to the retail stores. So let's talk about energy, for example. 100% of the energy we use in our plants comes from renewable sources of energy. But this is not enough. Inside our plants, we have made major investments for the setting up of cogeneration plants in order to have an increasingly limited impact on the territory and be self-sufficient. We are leaders in Italy in the production of drinks. That is for us particularly important. And also the way in which we manage this is of critical importance. So, for example, in this respect, we were awarded the European EWS, the European Water Stewardship, that actually testifies our commitment towards the protection of water basins. Then we also have, for example, special agreements with stores, with final stores. In these cases, over 65% of the actually places in which we store our energy, our products are environmentally friendly. And it is also important to show them things. So, for example, not only in terms of production, but also when it comes to the things that consumers can tangibly see. And packaging in this respect is a fundamental issue. We made a lot of investments when it comes to packaging. 100% of our products have been produced with recycled products, and then starting from the beginning of 2021, we launched on the market the first bottle of Coke that has been produced with 100% of recycled plastics. Over 150 million bottles of Coke, Fanta, Sprite, by the end of the year will be produced with recycled PET. But we also do more than that. For 2025, we expect that to achieve 35% of recycled PET packaging on the market, then 50% by 2030. So even if we go beyond, this way we also do more and do better than what the European Union laws prescribe. Then this is as regards primary packaging. Then we also do something when it comes to secondary packaging. Starting from this year, the classical plastic film that contained the Coke bottles has changed. And as a matter of fact, this has been replaced with paper, which is 100% recyclable. So this year alone, we will have the chance to save over 150 tons of plastics. And this will inevitably have a significant impact. But this is not enough. For example, over the last few years, we've reduced over 20% of the use of plastics, over 28% in the use of glass, and over 15% for aluminium. Consumers are always skeptical. And above all, I also realize that big companies find it difficult to talk directly to consumers. And this is also due to the fact that today, more than ever, sustainability is a topic that is relevant. In other words, consumers do not expect to know from Coca-Cola do in the field of sustainability, but they simply take it for granted. A company like Coca-Cola has to be a leading player in sustainability-related initiatives. But we're not alone. We have to work in synergy with other companies. We have to work and to collaborate with consortia, with other companies. But that's our mission. That is our mission, for example, when it comes to this very important topic. Over the last 2 years, the pandemic has not helped. All the major communication events destined to our consumers have not been organized. They have been differently organized. This year, for example, we seized the opportunity to go to the beaches every weekend to try and communicate how they can recycle and dispose of our products. For example, we did initiatives in the south of Italy, in Calabria, and so I could tell you many more of these examples. I could tell even more of the initiatives we're doing. If you have time and if you wish to do so, I would also like to actually consult the communication website of Coca-Cola Italia to check what Coca-Cola Italia is currently doing and what it will do in the coming months. Thank you very much. Coca-Cola has a major role. As Mr. Franzetti was telling us, the task is also to serve as a driver for innovation. Businesses have the task to serve as drivers for ecological innovation. And we pose the same question to Marco Travaglia, the President and CEO of Nestlé Italia and Malta. The question I would like to ask you is the very same that we asked Mr. Franzetti. So my question to you is, how do you convince your consumers that Nestlé is implementing initiatives in favor of ecological transition? What are you doing to achieve this target? You have the floor, Marco. Good afternoon, everybody, and also thanks also on my behalf for giving us the chance to tell you a bit what we at Nestlé are doing on this complex topic of the transition of food systems to its more sustainable forms. The planet is will rapidly become more and more populated. There will soon be over 10 billion inhabitants on the planet, and for more than 150 years, Nestlé has always been the same. In other words, we would like to improve the quality of life with quality food. This If we think about these issues today, we can see that the population is increasing, the number of people in the world is increasing, then there are also changing lifestyles. And this change in lifestyles is exercising pressure on food systems. There has been a recent report on the Environmental Agency of the United Nations reminding us of the fact that food systems in the world account for about 60% of the loss of biodiversity and 30% of CO2 emissions globally. And these figures show how major companies like us, like Coca-Cola, for example, or the big distribution companies, have to address the issue of sustainability. That is, of course, particularly important if you are to give a different prospect to the development of the planet and then the future of our generations, of the next generations. I also agree with what was said before by Mr. Franzetti. We're doing so also because this has become a request on the part of consumers. So if you're part of the problem, you will no longer be chosen by consumers. So consumers wish to choose those companies, distribution and production companies, who wish to be part of the solution. And Nestlé wishes to be part of the solution in this respect. So very tangibly, what do? We no longer talk about sustainability per se. We went beyond. We believe that we should rather talk about regeneration, and we carry out regeneration along three main directions. So the restoration of the ecosystems, support, that's the first one, then support to farmers, and then the maintenance of high food quality standards. So very tangibly, we have set ourselves measurable objectives. Our meta objective is to reach climate neutrality, by 2025 as a company. When it comes to agricultural raw materials, by the end of this decade, our tangible objective is to provide food, to get about 50% of our raw materials, 15 million tons worldwide, from regenerative agriculture. This means that if we succeed in doing so, we will reduce our CO2 emissions by about 44%. And this is fundamental if you are to achieve the climate objectives we have set ourselves. This is a pathway that we are currently doing worldwide. We work together with our suppliers. We work with a lot of farmers, 150,000 supplying distribution companies. So we are strongly committed in achieving these goals with the collaboration also of a series of NGOs, which on the one hand control our targets, and on the other hand, they help us improve our practices. So this is the world scenario where Nestlé is working. As regards Italy, I could tell you a number of things when it comes to plastics. Franzetti has done it well. For example, we have a percentage of about 50% when it comes to recycled PET packaging. There is a big project that we are implementing in the Emilia-Romagna region with our supplier of tomato sauce. That's a historical supplier for us. And they are producing us basically the whole tomato sauce for our pizzas, for our frozen pizza, in Italy and in Europe. Together with this supplier, we have carried out an initiative concerning 2,700 hectares. And we have developed a system of interconnected probes which make it possible to help farmers, which make it possible to decide the desired quantity of water for this land. Then we've managed to reduce by about 44% of water. in the reduction of water. And we've also increased the resistance of plants because we've reduced the need for chemical treatments for these plants. So this is a form of collaboration and the form of application of technology which is really very interesting and which will then extend also to other crops. And I'm happy that actually this initiative is being carried out in Emilia-Romagna with this supplier. Then there is yet another experience of circular economy we are developing, and this is something that we've been doing with Nespresso for about 10 years, and that is basically through a series of agreements with a number of bodies. Actually, we ask our consumers to bring back the pads that they have consumed, the Nespresso pads they have consumed, and then together with this used aluminum pad, we send them to Brescia in an aluminum separation plant. There are foundries which then process the used aluminum. Then the coffee buttons actually are sent to a compost company for the production of fertilizers, and then these fertilizers are then sent to some farmers we collaborate with in the area of Varese in Piedmont, and the cultivated rice produced with this natural fertilizer coming from our coffee is then bought again as an espresso and is then donated to the Banco Alimentare. So this way we are implementing a real circular transition. So from coffee bean in Ethiopia to the rice cultivated in Veneto, to the benefit, for example, of organizations like Banco Alimentare. So this is a small example of ecological transition, and we're very proud of that. We've been carrying out this for about 10 years. Allow me to draw to a close. Yeah, I was actually kindly asking you to draw to a close. Yes, thank you. Let me give you just 3 key messages. Collaboration, that is fundamental to be able to start this ecological transition. There are costs, and the costs have to be borne by everybody, also by the companies. And what's necessary is also support on the part of the institutions to implement this transition. Then innovation, that is also fundamental. We are dealing with digital agriculture, and so there is a great opportunity to apply the digital world to implement this implementation. And then transparency, because companies have to be a company when it comes to what they're doing, and we need to set ourselves clear objectives for all stakeholders to check them. Only if we do those can we contribute to this change which is necessary and to this transition which is absolutely needed for the future of our planet and for the future generations. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, and congratulations to Nestlé. The example of the coffee pods which are then recycled is really very, very interesting. Thank you. So we talked about Emilia-Romagna. So we have here Councillor Mammi. We're very grateful for you to be here. Councillor Mammi has, ever since the beginning of his mandate as Councillor for Agriculture of the Emilia-Romagna region, has always been present. He has always traveled a lot, so we would like to know from you whether you have witnessed some supply chains that have started this ecological transition, if you think that there are interesting examples that can be imitated or disseminated, and I would like to know what your councillorship is doing to kind of spread the message and talk about this need. Thank you very much for your invitation. Thanks, Camillo. Yes, that's true. I've traveled a lot. In 1 year and a half, I visited 110 municipalities. Before this mandate, I used to work as a mayor. And so I traveled a lot, and I did it in difficult times, in times of COVID. And we really hope that that we will soon be over from this period. However, this period will leave indelible marks. And we have learned a lesson. This is a lesson that we will have to bear in mind in the future. This lesson is that our region, our country, and Europe cannot do without well-organized and strong food chains. In other words, we cannot subcontract this function, which is so decisive for the life of our communities, which is that of food production. So we cannot subcontract food production and agriculture to other people. Over the last few months, strange theories that were prevalent in the 1990s when I was younger were set aside. According to these theories, Europe would have had to produce smartphones or devices, and it could become a big hub importing food supplies from all over the world. This is not possible. This will no longer be possible. We need food and agri-food food supplies that are solid, that are sustainable, and that are capable of producing added value for all their components. This is particularly important. And it is equally important to actually talk about the main challenge for agriculture. People have often talked about agriculture, but in my opinion, there are two more objectives. First of all, the capacity to produce, sustainability, and food quality and safety are the three main challenges that have to be kept in balance. These will be the three main challenges of the next century, because this is the big challenge. So productivity, for the reasons that you all mentioned. There will be 9 to 10 billion human beings in the future. They will ask for food. So the issue is whether Italy and Europe will be able to rise to the challenge, with companies safeguarding productions, protecting them from the effects of climate change, efficient enterprises, companies that are capable of producing income. Then productivity, that is a big value, and that has to go hand in hand with the second aspect that we've all mentioned so far, so environmental sustainability. So those who oppose the environment to agriculture commit a serious ideological mistake. And I'm telling you, because over the last 1.5 years, I've visited a lot of farms. Agricultural businesses are well aware of the value of the environment, not only because they work in the environment, oftentimes they also live there. It is farmers with the families who live in the environment. So what agricultural firms require from institutions is to be supported in environmental sustainability and ecological transition. They ask to be placed in the conditions to face this challenge from an agronomic viewpoint, from the point of view of technologies and infrastructures, as well as of the investments they need to do, as well as from the point of view of innovation, research, and knowledge. We shouldn't leave our businesses alone to meet the very ambitious goals set by the Green Deal. I agree with what was said before. When one talks about environmental sustainability, we always have to bear in mind that you also need to have economic and social sustainability. Otherwise, environmental sustainability will not be possible. And then there's a third important value. And I'm telling this working in a region that has done a lot from this point of view. Over the last 7 years, Emilia-Romagna has increased the area of agricultural land cultivated with organic produce by 7%. We have implemented technologies that pay a lot of attention to the use of water, that have reduced the number of chemicals used in agriculture. So we're strongly committed in this respect, and we are also aware of the fact that the three forms of sustainability have to go hand in hand. And then food quality and safety. After the pandemic, consumers will increasingly ask to be guaranteed on this front. They will ask to have products whose origin is known, whose composition is known, and quality products, so products that are safe from the point of view of nutrition. Our region in this respect can play a major role. However, quality food and safety is significant, and Italy has a lot to do in this field. How can we act to reach these three objectives? What we can do, in my opinion, is to use European resources at best. We have extraordinary funds like the Recovery Fund and the NRRP, and the ordinary one like the Rural Agriculture Plan. We should not actually disseminate all of these resources and allocate them to several initiatives that are not impactful. We need to use these resources for major strategic choices. And furthermore, we need to change the administrative procedures and institutional procedures which are normally adopted. I would like to applaud you on this. Actually, our country sometimes finds it difficult to use and coordinate the European resources which are normally assigned to us. So 200 billion euros in 24 months. So this requires different procedures, simplified procedures. Otherwise, we won't be able to use them. So resources are there. And how should we use them? We should use them to support our businesses. As a public administrator, it is businesses that create added value. We should not replace them. Businesses know very well what needs to be done. They are aware of the market needs. They know what opportunities are there. So we need to support them. We need to facilitate their work. We need to eliminate red tape, and we need to manage the public money we will have at best. We need to support businesses to make investments, to find new markets, and support them in the fields of research and knowledge. If we are to win the challenge of bringing together quality, environmental sustainability, and productivity, there is one tool, which is knowledge, and then research, innovation. Emilia-Romagna is the region that invested about 5% of its rural development plan on these fields. And we will go on like that, because it is only through research and innovation that we can actually develop the ability to develop new crops, or, for example, that we can fight against vegetable diseases, and possibly also to fight against climate change. So these are the three realms in which we need to invest resources. The Emilia-Romagna region has very strong production chains. They're very well structured. And over the last few years, they've done really well. A number of years ago, we issued a call for proposals rewarding those companies who joined forces in the supply chain and in a fair way. And that is because one of the main prerequisites was fair conditions in terms of rewarding. So those who did this over the last few years received about 150 million euros from the region. There were about 62 projects presented in a number of fields, and they've done a lot of investments in energy efficiency and environmental sustainability. And this once again testifies to the fact that businesses pay attention to these issues, and so we as administrators need to meet their needs of theirs, these needs of theirs. Thank you.
So, well, the region Emilia-Romagna is leader for these initiatives, and Stefano Berni is a good friend of CTO Agri-Food, is a friend of the meeting, so I would like to ask him to draw some conclusions about what we said up to now, and to tell us also what Grana Padano is doing in terms of a green transition. Just 5 minutes, Stefano. Well, it's not easy to synthesize in 5 minutes, but the Councillor already drew some conclusions of on this theme in the first part of his intervention, because I will try and really respect my allotted time. I believe that this conference and many other events are showing us that we had some priorities before the pandemic that turned out to be wrong. So there's a question that I ask myself every day. Our children's children, when looking at this change of era due to the pandemic, what will they think? We are experiencing it, we are trying to face it, but I could not imagine what people will say about this pandemic in 20, 30 years' time. So let's try and understand better what is happening at the moment and the new interests and attention that consumers and citizens are developing. The idea of a new food, or rather a honest food, based on new balances. The balances the Councillor was mentioning before, they are the result of needs due to environmental awareness. I'm not really interested in consumers paying more to counterbalance the efforts we are doing in favor of sustainability and environmental friendly products. What I really care is for consumers to choose these products. Freedom is a product of awareness, so everyone needs to be aware. Consumers, end users, everyone needs to be aware, because this creates freedom, also in a time of pandemic. I believe that awareness is our limit. We need to be aware of the situation, because, for instance, if I want to come to the meeting, I need to have my green pass, and there are some procedures to be admitted here at the meeting. And the same happens in terms of food. What did we do as a consortium? We have many different plants and packaging areas and centers, and we have dairy industries. 14 years ago, we started to measure our environmental footprint, and we really understood how we could reduce the emissions of carbon dioxide. We, together with our French friends, the University of Cattolica in Piacenza and other startups, we have projects to improve the environmental impact of our whole system, from our 4,000 stalls to the dairy industries and the packaging centers. So we managed to, we have a new project that was carried out or outlined by the European Commission to monitor the results. We started another project so that all our enterprises can actually measure their environmental impact, they can improve their environmental impact and their sustainability, and they can make responsible choices for the future by adopting this label, which is called Made Green in Italy, which is issued by the Ministry for Green Transition, and which will be used by all those enterprises that will reach certain levels of sustainability. And those who cannot meet the sustainability criteria will have to meet them within 2022. So we really, well, maybe we were really quick in understanding what we had to do because, well, we are the producers of a product that is consumed and known everywhere in the world. So we needed to be very attentive of what are the needs. And as the councillor said, we needed to focus on sustainability and on the well-being of animals. And this is a commitment that our consortium has taken years ago. And, well, as I said, we are part of a system that is actually beneficial from different point of view, because this, so to speak, this consortium is a safeguard. We do this with our French friends that produce a Comté cheese, for instance, and we are really also involved in the territory. As Matt the farmer said, the Benedictines gave, or rather laid the foundations. They reclaimed our lands, and they were actually the founders of the fight against waste 1,000 years ago. Milk was abundant in summer and spring, but not in the winter. So these monks managed to preserve the nutritional property of milk, turning it into our cheese, Grana Padano. So this is the first example of a fight against waste, food waste. And we're still here after 1,000 years. Very well, this meeting with the title, The Courage to Say I, today we really understood that everyone has a responsibility to carry. Obviously, those who are at the head of big enterprises have really the responsibility to carry out these activities and to achieve certain targets. So, for instance, our friend from Nestlé said, if we do not bring our Nespresso pods to some recycling points, we are not being attentive of the environment. So, well, our task is to make a green transition a part of our everyday life, in our working life, and in our culture with our families and our friends. And I would like also to share with you an invitation by the meeting. That is to say, we need to remind you that the meeting is a unique event, and it is the result of an extraordinary cooperation. Since 42 years ago, exhibitions, shows, and conferences are offered completely free of cost to those who come to the meeting, and now to those who follow the meeting from everywhere in the world. So this is possible thanks to donors who support the Rimini meeting. So this would not be possible without the work of volunteers and the donations of donors. So please donate. And, well, this is the last day of the meeting this year, so I hope you're going to have a fruitful conclusion of the meeting, and I hope that in our everyday life we can really carry out the green transition that will lead us to a better world. Thank you and goodbye.
Sapete chi è che ci dice se una forma di formaggio può diventare grana padano? La forma stessa. Se ci racconta di godersi la vita, di un sapore delicato e fragrante, allora sì, è grana padano. E se poi attendiamo mesi e mesi, avremo qualcosa di ancora più ricco e ricercato. Grana padano riserva. Grana padano. La vita ha un sapore meraviglioso.
Noi di Conad siamo vicino a Claudia, che cerca convenienza in ogni suo acquisto, dagli alimenti più freschi ai prodotti per la casa, per la salute e per il benessere. Abbiamo tanti Conad, tutti diversi, per essere vicino alle vostre esigenze.
L'Emilia-Romagna è una terra di piaceri proibiti. Dici che vieni qua perché si mangia bene, poi di nascosto vai a gustarti le città d'arte. Con la scusa delle notti folli ti godi i 202 teatri, i 530 musei, oltre 100 chilometri di portici, migliaia di spettacoli nelle sere d'estate. Ma abbiamo una reputazione da difendere. Quindi per favore non dire che vieni qua per l'arte e la cultura. I veri piaceri sono segreti. Emilia-Romagna, Italia.
Sapete chi è che ci dice se una forma di formaggio può diventare grana padano? La forma stessa. Se ci racconta di godersi la vita, di un sapore delicato e fragrante, allora sì, è grana padano. E se poi attendiamo mesi e mesi, avremo qualcosa di ancora più ricco e ricercato. Grana padano riserva. Grana padano. La vita ha un sapore meraviglioso.
Siamo vicino a Claudia, che cerca convenienza in ogni suo acquisto, dagli alimenti più freschi ai prodotti per la casa, per la salute e per il benessere. Abbiamo tanti Conad, tutti diversi, per essere vicino alle vostre esigenze.
L'Emilia-Romagna è una terra di piaceri proibiti. Dici che vieni qua perché si mangia bene, poi di nascosto vai a gustarti le città d'arte. Con la scusa delle notti folli ti godi i 202 teatri, i 530 musei, oltre 100 chilometri di portici, migliaia di spettacoli nelle sere d'estate. Ma abbiamo una reputazione da difendere. Quindi per favore non dire che vieni qua per l'arte e la cultura. I veri piaceri sono segreti. Emilia-Romagna, Italia.